Rethinking Poverty, from Dependency to Capability. Welcome to the Voice of Sovereignty at Global Sovereign University. Today, we're tackling a topic that touches something deep in the American conscience: hunger and poverty in the richest nation on earth. But we're not approaching it the way you might expect. We're asking a fundamental question. What if our approach to poverty has been perpetuating the very problem it claims to solve? Let me start with some numbers that should trouble us all. In the United States, roughly 40 million people live in poverty. 35 million experience food insecurity. This is a nation that throws away 40% of its food. That spends trillions on assistance programs. That has more wealth than any society in human history. How is this possible? How can we have so much and yet fail to eliminate want? The standard answers: inequality, inadequate funding, systemic barriers contain truth but miss something fundamental. What they miss is this: we have been solving the wrong problem. Let me explain what I mean. The conventional view treats poverty as a problem of scarcity, not enough resources reaching the people who need them. The solution, therefore, is distribution. Move resources from where they accumulate to where they are lacking. This logic has driven anti-poverty policy for generations. But here's the thing: we are not a society of scarcity. We overproduce food. We have more empty homes than homeless people. We have wealth beyond imagination. The problem is not that resources don't exist. The problem is that too many people lack the capability to access them through their own efforts. This is a crucial distinction. If the problem is scarcity, the solution is redistribution. Take from here, give to there. If the problem is capability, the solution is education. Develop the skills, knowledge, and mindsets that enable self-sufficiency. Now, let me be absolutely clear about something before anyone misunderstands. When someone is hungry, you feed them. When someone is homeless in a blizzard, you shelter them. Crisis intervention is necessary and moral. The question is not whether to help, but how to help. And specifically, what happens after the crisis. For too many people, crisis intervention is all they ever receive. The emergency becomes the permanent. The temporary program becomes the generational reality. The safety net becomes a hammock, and the hammock becomes a cage. I want to share a different vision. Imagine if every food pantry visit included a financial literacy lesson. Imagine if every welfare office connected recipients with mentors who had escaped poverty themselves. Imagine if every housing assistance program included job training, and every job training program taught entrepreneurial thinking. Imagine if we measured the success of anti-poverty programs not by how many people they served, but by how many people no longer needed service. What if graduation from assistance was the goal, not enrollment? This is what a capability-focused approach to poverty looks like. It doesn't abandon compassion, it upgrades it. It doesn't ignore immediate need, it addresses it while building toward long-term independence. It doesn't blame the poor for their poverty, it invests in their potential. Let's get practical. What specific capabilities would make the biggest difference? First, financial literacy. This is foundational. The person earning minimum wage who understands budgeting, compound interest, debt avoidance, and basic investing has a completely different trajectory than the person who doesn't. These are not complex concepts. They can be taught in hours, but they are rarely taught to those who need them most. I've seen people making $50,000 a year who are perpetually broke because they don't understand money. And I've seen people making $25,000 who build stability and eventually wealth because they do. The difference is not income, it's financial capability. Second, marketable skills. Plumbing, electrical work, HVAC, automotive repair, healthcare support, and technology basics. These are capabilities that the market consistently rewards. A person with these skills is never truly poor. They may be temporarily unemployed, but they possess something that cannot be taken away: the ability to create value that others will pay for. We have demonized vocational education for decades, pushing everyone toward college degrees that often fail to translate into meaningful employment. Meanwhile, skilled tradespeople are in desperate demand, commanding excellent wages and enjoying job security that most office workers can only dream of. Third, entrepreneurial thinking. This is not about everyone starting businesses. It's about developing the mindset that sees opportunity, creates solutions, and takes initiative. The person who waits for someone to give them a job is vulnerable. The person who looks around, identifies a need, and figures out how to meet it is resilient. Even in the most economically depressed areas, there are opportunities for those who can see them. Lawns need mowing, cars need washing, elderly neighbors need help, children need tutoring. The entrepreneurial mindset doesn't wait for permission, it creates value. Fourth, and perhaps most important, personal agency. This is the psychological foundation that makes everything else possible. It's the belief that your actions matter, that effort produces results, and that you have the power to shape your circumstances rather than simply being shaped by them. Research consistently shows that people who believe they can influence their outcomes actually do influence them. They try harder, persist longer, and find solutions others miss. This is not wishful thinking, it's documented psychological reality. Conversely, people who believe they are helpless victims rarely escape poverty regardless of external assistance. The belief becomes self-fulfilling. Why try if nothing you do matters? Why develop skills if fate controls everything? Now, I want to address a criticism that might be forming in some listeners' minds. Isn't this just blaming the poor for their poverty? Isn't this bootstraps mythology that ignores systemic barriers? The answer is no, if you actually listen to what I'm saying. I am not blaming people for being in systems designed to create dependency. I am not pretending that individual effort can overcome every structural obstacle. What I am saying is that capability development is possible within any system, and that people with developed capabilities navigate obstacles more successfully than people without them. The blame, if any, falls on those who built and maintain systems that create learned helplessness, on policies that reward staying in poverty and punish trying to escape it, on institutions more focused on perpetuating themselves than graduating people into independence, on a society that prefers the comfortable charity of food banks to the harder work of creating job-ready citizens. We have spent trillions of dollars managing poverty. How much have we spent eliminating it? There is a difference between making poverty comfortable and making it unnecessary. We have excelled at the former while largely ignoring the latter. So what would it take to shift from a distribution model to a capability model? First, we would need to redefine success. Programs currently succeed by enrolling more people and providing more services. That metric creates incentives to expand dependency, not reduce it. Imagine if programs were funded based on how many people graduated to self-sufficiency. How quickly that would change priorities. Second, we would need to invest in education that produces capability, not just credentials. Our school systems are failing precisely the populations that most need capability development. They are producing graduates unprepared for actual employment, lacking in financial literacy, and absent of an entrepreneurial mindset. Transforming this would be generational work, but it's essential. Third, we would need to create mentorship infrastructure, connections between people who have achieved self-sufficiency and people who are working toward it. Programs are no substitute for relationships. The guidance of someone who has actually escaped poverty is worth more than any curriculum. Fourth, we would need cultural change. We would need to celebrate graduation from assistance as a success to be admired. We would need to stop treating capability development as somehow insulting to people in need. We would need to embrace the ancient wisdom that the greatest gift is not a handout, but a hand up. I want to close by returning to the proverb that frames this entire conversation. Give a man a fish, and you feed him for a day. Teach a man to fish, and you feed him for a lifetime. We have been giving fish for decades. We have gotten very good at it. We have food pantries and food stamps, soup kitchens and school lunch programs, emergency assistance, and ongoing support. All of it is necessary. None of it is sufficient. Teaching fishing is harder. It requires patience, investment, relationships, and belief in human potential. It requires accepting that some people will struggle and fail before they succeed. It requires measuring success over years, not news cycles. But it is also the only approach that actually solves the problem. Distribution manages poverty. Education ends it. Giving fish creates dependency. Teaching fishing creates capability. The richest nation in human history has no excuse for generational poverty. We have the resources. The question is whether we have the wisdom to use them correctly, whether we will continue managing poverty or finally commit to eliminating it. Teach a man to fish. It's not a conservative or liberal position. It's not a policy preference. It's wisdom as old as human civilization, and it is time we applied it. Thank you for joining me on the Voice of Sovereignty at Global Sovereign University. Until next time.